Okay, so this is just an overview for Fathers for Life. Um, it's based on the Intentional Father book by Jon Tyson. It's the background behind this is to introduce a rite of passage into the UK or any society where there isn't a rite of passage for young men between the age of 13 and 18. So the idea is to bring some intentional passage into fathers and their sons over that very difficult, complicated period of 13 to 18 to basically help them to be influenced in the right way so that rather than just being a good dad or trying your best, we're moving from being a good dad to an intentional dad. And there's a subtle difference, but a massive impact in those two words. And I'll show you what that means now. So the book is worth a read, Jon Tyson, Intentional Father. What I've done is read it 5 or 6 times and put together a basic strategy to unpack the book as a series of monthly topics, which are shared amongst a small group of proactive, driven men with sons that are 12, right? And the idea is to have a preparatory 1 year period before before their kids become 13, so that the dads are fully equipped, ready for day one of that journey between 13 and 18. So the topics are pretty simple. If you think about how you would put this into place within your church setting, your ministry setting, or whatever, um, you're looking at introducing what I've just said as the first kind of session. It's about really starting somewhere. It's planting an acorn, it's planting a seed that's going to be able to grow. You can control it in a good way so that you can actually get fruit out of this and not trying to think too big. Just pick a small laser focus and crack on. And so thinking about this between your dad and your son, you can really make this something that is achievable. So it's all about helping our sons to become good at being a man. It's the way Jon puts it. And before we sort of crack on to the next session, you would, get the guys together, recruit them, talk to them about what's going on, have a coffee and a croissant or whatever, and then a few slides, on what it's all about, and then fast and pray before the first actual session. In our particular group, we had 4 dads, um, and as I said, each of the kids were 12, and of course they're all turning 13 at some point during the following year. And so this is a preparatory year before that starts, right? So first session then is to cover off the dads, as in us and our own dads. And the purpose of that is, of course, exploring our own relationships with our fathers to really make sure that we are fixing ourselves up as well as having a vision for our sons during this 12-month period. So we start to just take a session where we explore how do we feel about our own fathers, dead or alive, what our relationships are like them or like with them, and actually getting them right. Getting them right in the sense of, are we honoring our mother and father? In this case, our father. Is our own relationship with our father reflecting the way in which we see God, the Father? And if it is, we need to drill into that. We need to understand the disparity between perhaps how we feel about our own fathers and how that reflects on how we might see God and how we should be seeing God according to the truth of the gospel message of the word of God, right? So whatever work needs to be done, we're doing these each month so that you get plenty of time in between work and family and everything else to double down on this stuff. And the actual action to come out of the back of that particular topic, this is all sort of based on what the book talks about, is to write a tribute, an honourable tribute to your father. If he's alive, go, discuss and show it to him, celebrate your relationship with him, go through the forgiveness or whatever else needs to go on. If your father's dead, obviously, then, you can still write it, you can pray it. But the idea is to really address your own father relationship, earthly wise, to then to make sure that your reflection with God the Father is in a good place, right? Okay, so that's that. Then the next one is the funeral exercise, which is basically working back from the day that your lad leaves home. So the idea of that, you probably know from a funeral exercise and kind of coaching, is that in life coaching, you kind of you say, look, the day I die, what legacy would I like to leave behind? What would I like people to think of me as? What would I like people to think I was character wise, etc. Right? But you're doing that in terms of the day your lad leaves home. What values, skills, and experiences, what would you like him to have known about himself by the time he leaves home? This is such a massively beautiful time, these 5 years. And at one point, your son is going to leave the household. And this is what we're trying to do then, is to reflect back and become intentional about what are the things that we really should be preparing for now, which are going to make us feel that we've really done a good job of helping our sons, be equipped to be a great man, right? So we want to know, what do they know about God? What do they know about themselves? What do they know about life? So who do we want them to be? And I don't mean that in a controlling way, but how can we empower them to be whatever they want to be? What skills do we think it would be important for them to have? Look back on your own life. What did you wish that you would have loved to have had, known, but you didn't get a chance to do that? And what experiences do you think it would be great for him to have? And again, think out of the boat here. Any things that you didn't have as a kid, through poverty or whatever, or neglect, that you didn't have, but you feel in retrospect could be really valuable, for your own son. And then just basically write all this down somewhere. You can see on the bottom tabs here, I've been doing some stuff myself, right? But you do it however you wish, right? But you write a manifesto, right? You start to document this stuff. Okay, so the next one is a session on initiation planning. So there's an initiation ceremony, right? So the idea of a rite of passage means that what we're going to do is, have mark the occasion that your lad is going to go on the journey to become a man, right? So we plan what that journey might look like. It could be a camping sesh, a couple of days. It could be, an event of some kind. You go down to the seaside, some kind of baptism. It could even be an official thing, depending on, where you and your kids are in terms of church setting or whatever. Some kind of challenge. The idea is, we're going to be able to mark the occasion with some special words, perhaps some special presents, and an experience like marking the occasion, even if it was like banging your fists on your chest and running into the sea shouting, I'm going to become a man, whatever it might be. The idea is to get these kids excited about the journey that they're going to be going on, and to have some community time with some special moments along the way. Perhaps what we're planning to do, is hike to the top of a mountain, and as we all look out over the incredible creation, to have some kind of choice words to say at those moments that hit home, in these times. So get together, agree what a ceremony, what an experience and plan might look like. Okay. So the next topic is all about our story. So this is now about starting to, take into consideration your own experiences, values, milestones, places, important people, events that happen to you, so that you can actually start to reminisce on the important things that you're going to want to talk to your son about. And Jon Tyson talks about the mountains and valleys exercise, which basically mapping out the high points and the low points, the key people, key places, um, and the values and so on that are associated with that, why they were important, and how did you get them, what lessons did you learn, etc. Right? This is critical to be able to really start to get an intention or an anality around what sort of things you want to have in your back pocket that might crop up in conversation or as part of the plan as you unroll the 5-year period intentionally. They're going to be things that you're going to want to position to your lad, right? So the exercise for that is to go away and do that mountains and valleys exercise, mapping the peaks and troughs, and then filling them out in terms of those things that we've been talking about: experiences, values, milestones, places, people, etc. So you then dive into another level of that, which is to go into the actual values that these things then have driven. So you're going to define a value system, the ideal value system that you feel from all your experience would be a value system would be fantastic for your lad to have. I typically use the V2 Mom type methodology, which actually is a business sales tool, but it's really good because it just battens down like what the vision looks like. So it's vision, values, methods, obstacles, and metrics, but you can just use the V2 MO if you want. Um, but the idea is to really batten down, what is a clear vision for manhood for your boy based on everything you've experienced so far in your life, and looking at your own faith and values and Thomas principles, and then obviously taking into consideration your son's unique personality as well. So you go ahead and you think about that and you do that. Then the next topic is the 5 shifts. So this is then the ongoing during this 5-year period. Don't forget, it's kind of rolled out as opportunity comes along. Probably less in the beginning when they're still quite young, but then ramping up as they get older and start having more questions and more difficulties in their lives, right? But the 5 shifts is basically the idea that, the boys are typically wrapped up in their own worlds. They're going to need to know at some point that life is not like that. And these 5 shifts are basically, easy to hard, self-seeking to others, serving. Then, going from being the whole story, in terms of that sort of narcissistic, sort of self-centered world to part of the story. And things that you want to try and bring into their lives that will show them that. So, for example, in terms of, easy to hard, it's quite difficult. It's quite easy to do, right? They're having that already in terms of going to school and doing things they don't want to do. I say this already quite regularly to my kids. Serving at church, serving somewhere will show that it's not all about them. Look at poor, look at poverty, look at control to surrender, and yielding, which is something that will become more and more a part of their life as, of course, the Holy Spirit takes a hold of their everyday. Everything is temporary, on one side, to be living for the eternal. So, looking at death, looking at going to a cemetery, explaining the dash, you would have heard, treasure in heaven, storing up treasure in heaven, and the whole kind of mindset around that. So planning, documenting how to communicate these shifts over that 5-year period is really important to have that intentional element there as well. So then we have the plan for moments. So this is then critical because there are going to be things that happen that we are not necessarily going to be fully equipped to know about off the bat. So it's fantastic to be able to intentionally get a hold of these moments. So some of these moments might be great ones, like, your kid's first shave. They could be really difficult ones, like their first exposure to porn, the first time they masturbate, the first time, that they get dumped by a girlfriend. Whatever it is, the point is, discuss these moments as a community of men, get a handle on what the best ways to handle these key moments are, and document them. And then everybody's got something they can go for and go back to when these things happen. Roles to master. There's a few more of these, right? Probably another 5-10 minutes or something. So roles to master. This is now kind of drilling down into understanding how to help your lad to master being a great disciple, lover, warrior, and leader. And so each one of those requires some work and some planning, so that when you're talking about how to approach being a great disciple, for example, with Jesus as our role model, being a great lover, looking at understanding love languages, being empathic, respecting and cherishing women, right? Marriage, body changes, etc. Right? Being a warrior, mastering and accomplishing fitness, doing things together to drive that mentality, looking after diet, mental health, looking after community friendships. 5, being a great brother, being forgiving, being a great role model, helping to build community and the importance of community and fellowship, which is all coming out of this course, is trying to model that community in itself with an ongoing plan, as I'll talk about in a sec. So obviously the key here is to document this stuff and to outline plans to be able to be close to understanding how to communicate these things to your son in a kind of a natural way over this sort of 5-year period. So number 10, we're talking about self-discovery. So this is who God made them to be. How do they get in touch with their strengths and weaknesses and gifts? So there are, as you know, loads of these things out there, whether it's, the Strengths Finder, you've got Life Languages, you've got Destiny Finder, you've got all sorts of stuff that you can use. There's a couple that I've done, which I found brilliant, but you could choose whichever ones you want. But the idea is for your son at the right time, either with you or on his own, to do these strength finding and life language and spirit strength um, um, profiles, so that he knows exactly what his core drivers are, what he's less interested in, and what he needs to work on in terms of balancing out certain character traits from others, understanding his strengths, understanding he needs to work on his weaknesses, and also looking at where his spiritual strengths are as well. Apostle versus prophet, for example, and helping him to really sort of focus his attention on where the strengths of his life, his spiritual and his physical life, are going to be. And we have the arc of life. Now, this is an ongoing thing where you organize and reach out to a wider network of trusted people that you know in the church, or that are in your network, that are doing life well in a certain decade that they're living in right now. So somebody who's in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond, who can sow into your lad from different angles and different generations, so that they can get a handle on what the full extent of life looks like. And so obviously the idea is to reach out to people that would be interested in doing this, and then organize, interviews and meetings or chat, coffee, whatever, with these people for your lad or lads, in the group, to have these conversations, to get this wealth of information across the generations and across the decades. Then we've got 12, which is planning a gap year. Jon talks about really enabling a fantastic experience sort of post 18, before sort of further study, if that's the decision, if the route that your lad takes. But to get a gap year either for or with your lad to do something powerful, like go and do the Inca Trail, go and serve in Wellspring in Uganda, go and plant a church, go and help micro business in Kampala, whatever it might be. But get a chance to do something completely different, like a pilgrimage, something powerful for the kingdom, for a whole year, and to also sort of gain a bit of maturity and stuff before moving on in their lives. And to plan that and to talk about it. There's lots of different initiatives out there, but there might be some great things that you love to do yourself or you're already involved in. But it's important to put that on the map for this planning. And then the last one is ceremony of blessing, which is basically the opposite of the initiation ceremony. It's the last thing that you're basically finally blessing your lad into manhood, with mementos in the right people that he has met, he's seen that are important in his life, the right place, maybe a video diary that you've collected along the way, and you have a celebration basically of your lads entering into manhood, and with a set of gifts and elements that would be really powerful and useful for him going forward. And that again is to be planned well in advance, right? So the idea of this particular sort of 13-month or 12-month, really, 13 topics in 12 months, is to fully prepare every dad who is really on a mission to become that intentional father, as opposed to just trying their best, right? Which one hopes that, most dads want to try their best, right? The idea is to have a perpetual community of dads that grow over the years. So if you imagine every 12-year-old cohort comes in, then hand the baton down to the next group, and so on. And you're building this ever-growing community of dads that are serving their kids between the age of 13 and 18. And you would be able to annually recruit each cohort to be able to deliver it each year before those kids turn 13. So it's kind of a cyclical content plan, right? And then in terms of, deliverables, if you like, on this, thinking about the kind of the measures of this, you've got probably either a monthly or a bi-weekly Zoom or in person for support best practice for this growing set of dads that are basically diving in, to talk about, my lad just, just saw porn for the first time. What do I do? Whatever it might be, right? Um, then we've got ongoing activities which are going to be built into the intentional plan from between the 13 and 18 age gap, age range, which is going to be built of, consistent routines of some kind that clearly going to be difficult to establish to begin with, but they will grow over time, depending on what your kids like. But we are totally talking about integrating the word into daily life, research topics, books, films, anything else that's going to help drive the content being, dispelled or digested from the planning that you've done into your kid's life. Jon also talks about regular weekly meals, maybe experiences, activities, films, special occasions, and so on. And then on top of that, the community side of it is critical as well, is to keep the sort of face-to-face and community contact, as well as having the support, is also for the lads and the dads to get together with community activities around everything from, wiring a plug to changing a tire to a hike up a mountain to a barbecue celebration, whatever it might be. But you keep that intentionality going for the long term until that time, that your lad has got everything they need at the age of 18, 19, whatever it is, and they're flying there, they're spreading their wings, and they're leaving the nest. And you're watching your lad with his backpack going onto the airport, wherever he's going, getting in his car, and you can look back on your life and think, do you know what? That part of my life that was so massively powerful and massively important, that the Lord gave me to shepherd and steward, I've done all right. I've done all right.